Excited about that. Last week's players of the game, Jeremy McNichols on offense, Darren Lee on defense, O-line Stephen Baggett, D-line was David Moa, the Moa Constrictor, heard that from some of you, and the hard hat was Sean Whale. Sean had a great day, and Sean's a guy on special teams. We talked about special teams and working on that starting today and getting some of those issues fixed. Certainly we'll do that, but Sean was very consistent in that game, and we think Sean's a very good punter, especially when he has days like that. And so that was obviously big for us in that game. Injuries, the only season-ending injury, Evan Tyler had an ACL in that game. So MRIs came back, it was just the ACL, but that means he's going to have surgery. We'll miss the remainder of this season, and that's disappointing for us, disappointing for him. Certainly, the best thing we can do now is be positive with him, get him back as soon as we get him into surgery, and then get him on the road to recovery. Everybody else should be available for the game. Some guys are day-to-day right now, which means some guys may practice very little today. But we've always had a policy, if we can get guys a few reps by Wednesday, guys that have played, and then certainly they can go out there and practice on Thursday, that's usually where we decide if he's able to play or not. So the rest of the guys are day-to-day from here out. Just Utah State, they're 2-2. Coach Wells, I think we've had this conversation before about our relationship, and certainly have a lot of respect for him and what they do. Played a tough Air Force team this last week. And so that's a little bit different plan maybe when you're playing that triple option. But certainly get a chance to watch their players. And again, they continue to play hard. They've got guys out there. Some guys left, went to the NFL. They replaced them with the same type of energy and tenacity they play with. It's a tough physical football team. Just starting with their offense, Kent Myers, the quarterback, dual threat, threw the ball extremely well in the last game, probably the best performance he's had this year throwing, and also just with his legs capable of doing a lot of things, and really his escapability is what makes him dangerous as well. Their wide receiver Tarver, number 19, big target, big guy, made plays. I think he had 9 catches in the Air Force game, so a guy that on third downs was a target for them, and they did a good job on third downs. I think they were 50% plus in that game. And then, their starter, looked like their starting running back got hurt, but number 4, Tawny Lindsley, second leading rusher, got his opportunities to step up. And certainly, as you play in the season, you get to 3-4 games, guys will get banged up, don't know what that means as far as him coming back or not. On the defensive side, they're 32nd in the country, number 3 in our conference, and so these guys are doing a really good job. They're flying around, a lot of different looks, a little bit similar to what we saw against Oregon State, and then their own flavor to it. So there's some variety they've mixed in there. Number 13, Jalen Davis, was an honorable mention player last year. That guy continues to make plays. Number 16, the middle linebacker, Anthony Williams. Very good player, very good blitzer, and a guy that will get after you, and certainly brings it when he is bringing pressure. And then I think their safety, Dallin Levitt, he left the game, number 2, looked like a pretty significant injury, and he's a really good player. Don't think he'll probably play in this game after what I saw, but he's a junior, and you certainly don't want to see guys that caliber of players especially go out with an injuries like that, because he did a lot of really good things. So they'll have to do something in the back end. I'm sure they've got their guys ready to step up there, but certainly he was a very good player, and unfortunate injury for him. The special teams really just comes down to what we do throughout the week. I think both sides are focusing on those areas, and we certainly will be as well. But with that, we're excited to get back at Albertson Stadium, pack it, and be loud, have a great atmosphere like we did last game, and get started with our first division play. And that's what this preseason, these 3 games, has been about, is getting into Mountain West Conference play, and certainly starting off with a very good team. So we'll open up for questions.
I think 3 of the next 4 games you play teams that beat you last year. And obviously we talked last week with the connections with the coordinator about the game you guys had down there in Logan last year, but I think a fan referred to it as a debacle yesterday at the luncheon. What do you, when you look at that game and how you're trying to obviously put that behind you, I know you said you don't need to say anything to the players, but how do you think that kind of payback aspect and what the sick feeling they had comes into play this week?
Yeah, I think anytime you lose a game, I wouldn't, like I said before, I wouldn't call it that. And certainly I would never say that to our players because they actually go out there and play, and it's easy to talk about, hard to do. But you look at what you did wrong. That's really what you do. You look at what you did wrong. You also look at what they did right. It's not always what you did wrong. Certainly when you play good teams, they do things right, and they did in that game. So the big key in that one was turnovers. There were still some opportunities that there was explosive plays in the run game and pass game, but it really comes down to turnovers, and that's no different than what we talk about each and every week. We have to win the turnover battle, and certainly we want to do that. We haven't done that, and that's something that will cost a football team somewhere down the road if you're not in the plus when it comes to turnovers. So I think that's really the key to the game, and I think that was last year's team. That was last year's group that played in that game. This is a different team, different group. Certainly guys played in that game, but it's a completely different team. And all you can do is go back and learn from it and then say, well, that doesn't really apply to what we're doing right now. You certainly don't want to see that repeated. So you learn from it, you move forward, and we're doing different things than we did last year. So I think it's really more than anything just a learning experience for us, and we can take things away from it. But our focus every week is 1-0, and it's certainly no different this week.
It can be a driving force. When you try to think about guys say, hey, they lost that team last year, but also you don't want it to overwhelm them too much. How do you try to balance that? Let it kind of motivate them, but also at the same time not let it really overwhelm?
Well, I think what we said, we don't talk about what we did. Those were the previous teams. We're talking about what we are doing right now, and I think that's something that's changed a little bit, because you think about the freshmen that come in here. All right, yeah, we won 3 Fiesta Bowls. No, you didn't. They did. Those teams prior to you did. What are we going to do now? So really, it's more of that mindset. That was last year's team. Different group of players, some different coaches in there as well. This is this year's team. Certainly, I think the excitement is we get to be at home playing, and we get to start division play. That's probably the most important thing. And still, in the game of football, it comes back to, it's not about, are you angry or anything like that? Do you have a little more juice? No, it's about executing your assignments and doing it consistently. And that's really what the focus is each and every game, and will be this week as well.
You brought up turnovers, and I know that you probably maybe haven't forced as many of them as you'd like to the first couple of games, but it seems like sacks can be a kind of a game changer as well. And if you look at, even the NFL teams from last year, like the top 6 teams in the NFL ranked in the top 6 in sacks. So the success that you guys have had at getting to the quarterback, A, are you pleased with it? And then B, how does that kind of change the games? It's not a turnover, but they alter drives.
Yeah, still want the turnovers, because still feel like that's the key ingredient. If we're able to win the turnover battle. Now, the last 2 games, we've shown differently, but we've scored on defense, so that's another stat in there too we talked about. The sacks certainly help. When you see your defense on the field and it's 3rd and 17, certainly I know that from the offensive standpoint, that's a hard down and distance to convert. So the sacks have been big. I've been very pleased with the D-line. I think those guys have done a great job. I think they've accepted the challenge. And not just the 3 guys, the Sam McCaskills, the Elliott Hoyts, or the David Moas, Sonatane Louis, that's in there. There's a variety of other players, Emmanuel Facili, Daniel that's been in there. There's been other guys that have stepped up and made plays, and we've been in some 4th down situations too that they've been able to stop them. And so that's like a turnover. The 4th downs, we didn't count them as actual turnovers, but you go back